Welcome back. Today I want to take some time to review how to graph linear equations. So we will begin the lesson by going over slope-intercept form. I'll touch on some examples and then we're going to graph some constant functions. So let's begin by reviewing what slope-intercept form is. And you can have y or you can have f of x. So because these lessons are heavily concentrated around the use of functions, I'm going to use function notation here. So f of x equals mx plus b, where m is your rise over run. This is also referred to as the slope of the line. And then we have b here, which is another important piece of this equation. That's going to be the y-intercept. So if you have your y-axis, which is this vertical line, and then f of x, let's say it's this line. This is f of x. The y-intercept is going to be here. It's going to be the point in which your graph cuts through the y-axis. So using these pieces of information, now let's take a look at some examples on how to graph these lines. Let's begin with this one. So to successfully graph this equation, I'm going to make use of the y-intercept first. So we can see here that the y-intercept is going to be 2. In other words, the y-intercept is basically the number that doesn't have a variable attached to it. So you see how 1/4 has x attached to this? That's going to be the slope. The other number, the one that's just by itself, that's going to be the y-intercept. So let's go ahead and graph that. So we got to look at the y-axis, which is this vertical line here. And now we have to look for +2, and +2 is right there. So let's make a point indicating where the line is going to cross at. Now we can get the y-intercept, make use of the y-intercept, and that's going to be the number that is attached to the x variable. So the rise over run here. So my rise is going to be 1 and my run is going to be 4. So we're going to go up 4 and then to the right, up 1 and to the right 4. So 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to plot a point right there. So right here. Let's do one more. So up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. Now it's important to emphasize that when you're running, you're always going to go to the right. So you're always running to the right, even if you have a negative right here. You're running to the right. The only way in which you would go to the left is if you were trying to plot the points going backwards. So you see here how I'm going up 1 to the right 4. Here we can do the opposite, go down 1 and then go to the left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 and plot it right there. In general, if you have enough room, just go to the right. There will be some examples in which it will necessitate that you move backwards, and I'll show you an example right now, but again, you're always running to the right. Now that we have at least 3 points, we can do our best to draw a line here, and that would be the graph of this function. So let's attempt to graph this one now. So here, let's begin by getting the y-intercept. So my y-intercept is going to be +1 because this is the number that does not have a variable next to it. So I look at my y-axis and +1 is going to be right there. So I'm going to draw a point here. This is where the function is going to cut through the y-axis. Now I got to look for the slope, and the slope is the number that's next to x. This is famously known as rise over run. So my rise is 2 and my run, even though it's not visible, it's going to be a 1. So every time you just have a regular number there with no denominator, your denominator is by default +1. So now, beginning on my y-intercept, I'm going to go up 2 and then run to the right 1. So we go 1, 2 to the right 1, 1, 2 to the right 1. I have 3 points, and now I can draw my graph. So let's do this last one now. So here I have my y-intercept as positive 3. So that's my y-intercept. So I have to look at my y-axis and search for positive 3, and positive 3 is right there. So let's go ahead and plot a point here. I'm going to do it in blue. And now we have to get the slope, my rise over run, and that's the number that's next to x. So here we have a negative sign next to x, so that's basically a negative 1. And again, since we don't see any denominator here by default, the run is going to be positive 1. So now, beginning at the y-intercept, we have to rise negative 1. Since we have a negative, we're actually going to fall. We're going to go down 1 and then to the right 1. So here we go down 1 to the right 1. We have this point. We go down 1 to the right 1. We got that point. And now the graph of the line is going to look something like this.